Hey guys, welcome back. Joseph Ulmer here. Today I'm going to take you through doing rear pads and rotors on a 2012 Ford Edge. I'm going to show you the important things you need to do, you need to look for, take care of anytime you're doing a brake job. So this is going to apply to any disc brake job you do, whether it's front or rear. Really doesn't matter. Okay, first thing you need to look for, you can definitely tell these are worn down. This vehicle's got 150,000 on it, so we're going to put rotors on it as well. Now, with these calipers, this is your e-brake cable back here. You can see that it's built into the back of the caliper. So, anytime you have a caliper with a built-in e-brake cable on the caliper, this piston here, your piston in the caliper, will have to be rotated. It screws back in under pressure. Now, in order to get the caliper off, we're going to take a C-clamp, we're going to put a little pressure on it, and it will move just enough to loosen this up. That way we can pull the caliper and the pads off, and then we'll have to remove the mounting bracket. And okay, where is my coffee? Okay, we compress that. Next thing we need to do is these two pins right here are our slide pins. This one has a vibration damper of some kind on here, but we need to remove our slide pins, and that'll allow our brake caliper to come off, or our slide pin bolts, excuse me. And on this edge, they are 13 millimeter. So, and to get the bottom one out, there we go. Be careful when you're using an open end wrench that you don't round them off. Now, we can lift our brake caliper up and out of the way. Since it's got the e-brake cable attached to it, I should be able just to sit it up on top and it'll hang there. We'll go ahead and pull our old pads out. Definitely tell they were getting a little thin on the inside. And then, well, how well it's going to show up, but this bolt and this bolt back here are bolts that hold our caliper mounting bracket on. And then we have one Torx. Alright, this is a T40 Torx. We've got her broken loose. I'm going to try bumping it with my little impact and see if it'll come out. There we go. Alright, cover your ears, turn your headphones down. We're about to really make some noise. Oh, feet are... That hurt. It's going to leave a mark. Oh, that hurts. Haven't ever done that one before. Now we're going to do this step for both rotors at the same time. They always, you can see this yellow stuff right here. That's a cosmoline grease that they pack these in to keep them from rusting. So we're going to hit them with some brake cleaner, let it sit for a second, and then wipe them off with a fairly clean rag. And the brake cleaner will dissolve all that grease off of the friction surface of the rotor. I don't generally worry about the hubs because the pads aren't going to ride on the hubs, but you want the friction surfaces clean, or that grease will get into your new brake pads and cause them not to function properly. Now, we're just going to sit this one off to the side. Grab this one, try not to get any nasty fingerprints on the nice clean friction surface. Slide her on. Now I'm going to have to gently tap it into place here. And then okay. And just to make sure she's tight enough to center up, we'll use our impact driver again. And we'll go the other way. Alright, that's mounted. Now, I'll leave that out because I'm going to need that on the other side. Let's go get the other side torn apart. That way, we'll get it torn apart, we'll get the rotor on, and then I'll show you how to, we'll do both these calipers, we'll compress them both at the same time. Let me move my cart over here. Before we put our caliper mounting bracket back on, we're going to take all of our clips off of our mounting bracket. You can see the amount of dirt and brake dust on this bracket. And we're going to put new clips on. We got new clips with our new pads. I'll show you in a minute. Take our die grinder, a wire wheel, and we're going to clean up the area where these clips are going to ride. You want to get these all cleaned up, and you can see how shiny they are now. our new stainless steel clips that we're going to put in. You don't want any of that rust will put pressure on the clip and it'll tighten up on the brake pad. Now, we're going to go ahead and remount this one. When you do this, Loctite is your best friend. If you notice, you can see the blue down in the threads. That's a factory blue Loctite that Ford puts on here. I prefer the Permatex red. It grabs a lot harder. This is Loctite red, but generally I have Permatex. Same thing. They're different brands, but same concept. You definitely want a Loctite in there to make sure these don't come loose. Grab your synthetic brake caliper, braking caliper grease, and we're going to pull out our slide pins. Now that's just a rubber boot. Just hold the boot, slide pin comes out. You can see this is still good and clean. It's got plenty of grease on it. The grease isn't dirty. There's no rust. So we're just going to add some more grease on here. Good and lubed up, and slide them back in. I suspect I'm going to pull this lower one out, and you're going to see it's got some crap on it. And that's a good possibility. You know what? That one actually looks pretty good as well. So we're going to, she wasn't tight, and we're going to lube her up and stick her back in there. But you want these to slide because this allows your caliper to float to keep from wearing one or the other pad out or wearing unevenly, and it allows the brake to release once you release the pedal. So they should move nice and freely just like that. Yeah, I mean, there's no effort there. Now, we're going to be using some Powerstop Evolution Pads. These are ceramic pads that come with the hardware. These are their Z17 series, their Evolution Plus ceramic pads. I love these pads. Powerstop, if you're out there and you want to sponsor me, please do. They always come with new hardware. And your pads. Now, we're going to grab our hardware here because now this S-shaped clip will go to the outside. You can see how this has a curve here. This is a 90. The 90 goes on this side, the curve goes on this side. And that S-shaped clip, to get them in, you just put them on, push them toward the center, and they drop right in. Same idea from the back side. And see, that one will be wrong. So you got to find the right one. Okay, that's alrighty. There we go, just like that. And then up here is the same thing. Just like that. And one more on the outside. Just like that. Now, we're going to take our pads. Now, Evolution always pairs their pads up. You always want to look and make sure all four, you don't have two different styles of pads, because some vehicles use a different style pad on the inside of the caliper as opposed to the outside. These are all the same, so it doesn't matter which two we grab. But we're going to take them, we'll take a little bit of our disc brake grease, and we're just going to put it right here on the ends. That way they'll slide nice and easily in those new stainless clips. And this is one of the things that I love about these pads. I've installed probably 40 sets of these pads so far, if not more than that. And I have never once had to grind, file, or sand on any of these tabs to get them to fit properly. Now, I'm not going to mention names, but there are some other brands of pads that I've had to do that with. These always slide in nice and easy, just like that. Very little resistance. They just get them lined up. You can get them lined up. There we go. And they slide in. You can see they move around very nicely, which is what you want. You don't want them sticking. See how easy they move around? Okay. Now, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to get this cleaned up. I'm going to get the clips in. I'm going to get the pads in. And I'll be right back to show you what we're going to do with the caliper. Alright guys, I've got the other side put together. Now, I've got two rear disc brake tool kits here. One is Matco, you can see the part number. The other is a Powerbuilt. You can get this as a Lona tool from any of your auto parts stores. So you will need parts of this kit, either one of these kits, to compress the rear calipers. We're going to use the handy dandy Matco set because I'm having issues with that one, and this is actually a better set, so there we go. Nope, that one stays in here. This one goes right here. Okay, so this set, that goes on there. Now, we slide that right in there. We index our pins index in. And then once we get our pins lined up, we're going to thread that out until we're putting pressure on the back side of the caliper. That's going to be pushing on the piston. To compress these calipers, they have to rotate. You have to screw the piston in while you compress it. I'm using a Matco rear disc brake tool for this. You can actually get these tools as a Lona tool from any auto parts store. They'll have sets, generally in Powerbuilt. But to do this, we're going to hold this one with a wrench, and then we're going to run the screw in. And if you watch, see how whoop, she came loose on me. Let's get her back in there. Come on. One way, one the other. And as you rotate the center a little bit, you can compress the outer, or compress the piston. And you just keep working it until you, okay, now it won't go any further in. Now what you want to do, as you can see, maybe it'll show up. Let me put a light on it. Right here, if I push the boot back, you can just see that pin on the tool. That is where one of the grooves in the caliper is, and you want those directly up at the top and one down at the bottom, because the inner pad has a pin identical to this that groove has to index into, and it keeps the piston from rotating so that the screw behind it can lock it out every time you apply the e-brake. So, in order to get that directly on the top, and if you don't do this, it'll play hell getting it back on. We're going to rotate that back. Now, we're going to need to rotate that piston around to get the notch facing upward. Nope, a little too far there. Now it's right here. So we're going to go back the other way just a little bit. Get it about centered on the top. Okay, and then once we do that, just turn that in, and you can remove the tool. And you can see those are straight up and down. Now we can slide our caliper. We'll have to push our slide pins in just a little bit. Ooh, get it started. And it should. Oh, we're caught on the boot. This pin on the inside is catching on the boot on the caliper, or on the piston. So there we go. Get her in there and get her lined up. I just use my little pocket screwdriver to reach down there and push the boot up and over. And then we can get our slide pin bolt started. Remember, your damper bolt goes on the bottom. Now, I generally don't use Loctite on these because especially on this one, because you don't want, you get that in there too tight, you'll never get it off again. Okay, that's all back together. We're ready to put our wheel on, and I'm going to go to the other side. All right, guys. Now all I have to do is put the wheels back on. You want to make sure you remember before you put the vehicle in drive, pump up the brake pedal. Before you start it, just get in there, pump it up. That'll get rid of the gap, which you can see. There's a little bit of a gap between the piston and that inner pad. And there's also going to be, there's a slight gap, not much, between the outer pad and the caliper. Now, the caliper, you can see it moves around on its own. It'll float around a little bit. That's normal. That's what you want. But you want to pump that up and take that slack out. Otherwise, the first time you hit the brakes, you put it in reverse, it'll take off rolling, and you'll have to pump the brakes up before you you end up hitting something. So always, anytime you do a brake job, make sure you pump them up. But do me a favor, guys. Please rate the video. Got it all back together. I'm going to get in. I'm going to pump the brakes up once I get the wheels and tires back on before I drive it. Because if you don't pump the brakes up and take the slack out of here, because there is a little bit of a gap between the piston and the pad, you're going to get rid of that slack. Otherwise, if you go to put it in drive, this thing will take off rolling before the brakes grab. So you always want to pump them up as soon as you get done with the brake job. I'm going to take it out for a test drive because since we have new pads, new rotors, Powerstop actually has a bed-in or break-in procedure for their pads on the lid of the box. And this one, you want to do 30 decelerations from 30 miles an hour to 5 miles an hour with 5 seconds in between to allow the brakes to cool. And that will bed the pads into the new rotors. And by doing that, you'll actually get the best life out of the pads and the rotors. So you really, if at all possible, you want to do that when you first take it out for a test drive. Follow the break-in procedure, which hopefully you guys can read it here on the box. And that'll give you the best life out of your pads and rotors. But this has been the basics of doing a rear brake job. The special tool that I used for compressing the pistons, that was a Matco tool. You can get them in Powerbuilt. You can get them in a couple of different brands as Lona tools from your local auto parts store. So if you're doing rear brakes, you will, if they have the emergency brake or parking brake built into the caliper, you will need that tool to compress your rear brake piston. If it's not built into the caliper, Some vehicles have a drum built into the rotor. You won't need that tool. You can compress them just like you do front brakes. And if you haven't seen my video on front brakes, look right up there at the top of the screen for a link to that video. But if they have the parking brake as a drum inside the rotor, you don't have to use that special tool. You can just compress them with a C-clamp. Anyway, that's the basics, guys. Hope you like it. Please don't forget to rate the video. Subscribe if you haven't. If you have, click the little notification bell that's somewhere down here. That way you get notifications every time I post a new video. And please share this with your friends. It might help them. And I really appreciate every share I get. So we'll see you on the next one, guys. Don't forget, get out there and get your hands dirty. You might have a little fun doing it. Oh, you son.